Good morning and welcome to our press conference that we always have each Wednesday after our Tuesday City Council meetings. Appreciate the press being here and I hope many are tuning in. There's several things I wanted to address before I start taking questions. And the first is this guy up here on the podium with me, that's Mayor Possum. He is a puppet that I plan to use to go into the schools and churches and other areas to talk about the new litter program that we're kicking off. We talked about this some last night at the council meeting, but I want to go into a little bit more detail about it today because it's more than just a day for the citizens to come together and pick up trash. Since I've been in office, I've been working with citizens on trying to come up with a plan to address not only the litter that we have in the city, but the blight and the ordinance issues that we're facing. This is another issue that is not unique to Columbus. You can drive any area of the state and almost in any state around the nation and see litter issues. When I was thinking about this, I remember back to my days growing up, we had the litter bug come into the schools. I think a lot of people my age have a real adversity to litter because of that. And somehow along the way, we kind of lost our way, I think, when it comes to litter and the importance of keeping your environment clean and beautiful. It has an impact on a lot of things in a city. It has impact on self-respect. It has impact on attracting industry and business. It has an impact on people wanting to move to your community. And it is an issue we hear about. I don't think there's been a single day during my time as mayor that somebody has not brought up a litter issue to me in some way. So the Pick It Up Possum Town and Mayor Possum was an inspiration that came to me thinking about the litter bug. Now, I'm not sure he wasn't as embraced by the committee as I was completely all the time, but I told him there were two things that I wanted to keep in this campaign for picking up litter is Pick It Up Possum Town and Mayor Possum here. And the reason that I wanted to do it is I wanted to come up with something that was unique to our city. The city is a member of Keep America Beautiful and Keep Mississippi Beautiful. Sasha James, who is over code enforcement, is the director of that area. She has been trying for a couple years to build a board to work with her. She took it over around the time that the pandemic hit. The city's had it at one time. It's been in private hands and kind of back and forth, the membership of that. By being a member of this group, we could potentially get grants and support from the state level. It's been used by volunteers quite a bit in the community in the past. Y'all probably remember Clean Sweep in Columbus. That was primarily all volunteer driven. And so, there's been a lot of efforts over the years with the CVB, Main Street Columbus, and a lot of different groups trying to pull this together. So what I was hoping to do is to take the synergy from all of those things and bring it into a new effort that was unique to Columbus. Now, the things that we want for this is we want it to be sustainable and we want it to be a citizen effort to educate and inform the entire community and how they can help us do this. Now, we're going to be doing surveys with citizens to get input and ideas. We're working with a lot of different groups to make sure that we offer this out to everybody and throughout the community. One of the reasons I want to go into the schools with this is to encourage the kids at a young age the importance of getting involved. But also for the older kids, we're hoping to maybe have some opportunities for them during the summer to be able to have, a paid job helping this organization in the city keep the city clean, and just, invoke a sense of pride at all levels as we can. And many times, if we can influence the kids at a young age, they'll go back and influence the families. And so we want it to be a fun thing, but we want it to be a very serious thing. We want to look at environmental issues within how people are dumping things. We're studying our landfill, how we can handle that better. We're running out of room out there. We're going to have to do something fairly soon. So again, it's going to be looking at across the board issues. And the thing that's been great about this is the volunteer committee has been meeting for several months, for almost once a week. And we've been able to bring in Public Works. They're attending the meetings and we've gone out and canvassed the areas to look at some of the high areas of need within the city. We've brought Sasha James in with code enforcement into these meetings. She has brought to my attention and the COO that other municipalities our size have started environmental courts to try to crack down on the code enforcement and the fines. That's not what we want to do, but if we have to try to do that to catch people's attention that we're very serious about, doing this, cleaning up the city, then that's what we need to do. I was going through the code earlier today looking at the different fines that we have in place and the different reasons that people could be fined for litter. We had a joint meeting with the county the other day, and they want to get involved in this too. They have a problem in the county as well. And there was a lady that asked the question if we could hire a litter czar, somebody that was out, actively trying to catch people. She said she remembered us having one at one point. I don't know, was that you, Uncle Joe? Were you the litter czar? But I told her that what we do want to do, though, is, we want to have people to be aware in the city and point out if they see, we don't want confrontations with people or anything, but we just kind of want people to catch what we call the fever of keep cleaning up our city and maintaining it. The big thing on something like this is, you can have these cleanup times, but it's hard to maintain it. It's hard to keep that enthusiasm. But to try to do it this time, our first big effort where we're trying to bring the entire community together is going to be on April the 2nd from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. And this volunteer group has been working with all the council members individually in their wards, and they've selected a location where they're going to meet up on April the 2nd. And we'll have all the things that they need to help clean up: gloves, trash bags. But if you have your own stuff like that, please bring it. If you would like to donate, if businesses would like to get involved and sponsor it, they can. They can contact us here at City Hall. Melissa Parsons is our event contact for this. She is the chairperson for the Pick It Up Possum Town. You'll be able to see her email and stuff. We'll put it on the mayor's Facebook page after this so that you can get involved. And what we really want to do is encourage everybody. A couple times after I've put out the post about Pick It Up Possum Town and news coming soon, I've taken to the streets myself to pick up, because I do that anyway, and I think it's important. But it's been amazing to me how many people would stop and talk to me, seeing me do that, and say they want to get involved. So help us spread the word. My focus in the coming days too is putting something together to get Mayor Possum out into the schools and the churches. I'm working with some individuals to come up with materials that we can hand out, where it's Mayor Gaskin and Mayor Possum working together with the citizens of Columbus and then the citizens of Possum Town. That's where we got the word critter from. Just another fun, creative way. I've been scaring people in City Hall all day with this guy. And Angie thinks I'm getting a little too attached to him. He gets closer and closer to my desk. But anyway, we want to make this a fun and serious thing for folks to do, because, again, I don't know that there's anything that's as critical to the marketing of a city than the way it looks. This will also tie into what we've been trying to do with blight. You've heard us talking about that. George Irby is leading the charge on that. He's very passionate about it. We've been talking to the county about working with us on it. So all these things fit together. And when you have a clean city and clean neighborhoods, it makes your citizens feel better. They feel more pride in the area. And so that's why this is a very serious issue. We're trying to make it fun, but we don't want to take away with the seriousness of it as well. It has a lot to do with public health. When you don't have clean cities and streets, you start getting critters that you don't want, like rats and things in areas where they're not supposed to be. So there's a trickle-down effect from this type of stuff. You just may be thinking you're dropping, your McDonald's bag on the street. What is that a big deal? Well, yes, it is. And I will tell you, in some of the areas where I've been cleaning, I've been coming across things that I don't want anybody to see. So people are dropping all kinds of things and, leaving them on the streets. So and again, let me say this too, for parents and kids, when we're going into these different wards, we've been looking at places that we make sure from the road and standpoint is safe for people to clean. Some of our streets are kind of narrow, and so we want to make sure we've got people in areas where there's no chance of danger of being hit by a car or that type of thing. So again, if y'all have got some ideas about this, please reach out to us and help us pick it up Possum Town. Don't be a litter critter. All right. After that, I want to mention a couple of other things that are going on in the city that we talked about some last night. I want to remind people, of course, our kids are on spring break, so I know that people are looking for things to keep their kids busy during this time if they're not traveling. And there's a group that's called One Columbus that has been working on a lot of things for the city, trying to help with crime and a lot of other issues, and trying to be what I've said, and there's a lot of other groups doing this, that if your city is going to prosper and do well, it's going to take an active citizenry to do it. Your elected officials can't do it by themselves. And so they planned for spring break a free event for kids of all ages. They opened it up at the Trotter Convention on Monday, and there were donors that helped them secure that space, and we appreciate that. And they had a lot of folks from in the community to come out to talk to the kids. They brought a speaker in who is from Columbus originally, and talked about the fact, if you didn't see the article about him or see it on TV, you should really go back and look about it. He talks about how he went from a GED to a JD. And he talked to the kids about some mistakes he made early on in his career, but look where he is now and what he's able to do. And those are all inspiring kinds of stories that I think is beneficial to all of us. Tonight, that same group will do an event at Probst Park from 5 to 7. And then on Friday, they're going to do a youth showcase at the New Beginnings Church at 7 p.m. So there's information out on Facebook about these events. If you need to learn more, contact us here at City Hall and we'll help get you to the right people. But I also just want to always say thank you to residents that are doing this type of thing, that are giving back to the city. I also want to thank all the folks who have been involved in the school board meetings. Well, it's actually not the board, it's Dr. Labatt representing the schools, going into all the wards over the last couple of weeks to talk about the schools. There are 2 more events coming up in Ward 1 and Ward 6. I've attended all but one of the meetings, and I think they've been very productive and helpful. What I would like to see is more individuals attending. I've said this, and I'm going to continue to say this. One of the reasons I ran for office is to be as supportive of education as I can, because I think all the issues that we're facing in our city, you can take back to education in some way, whether that be poverty, whether that's crime, communities that are really thriving in this state and around the nation. You can mark it down to strong public schools. When industry comes to look at a location, when people are looking to move somewhere, the first thing they look at in many cases is the school system. So I'm encouraging people, whether you have students in our public school system, whether you have grandkids or not, to attend these meetings, because it affects everybody. And I know it's hard to find time to go to some of these meetings, but I truly believe there's nothing more critical than we can be working on than making sure that we're supporting our children, and they are our children, whether they're blood related to us or not, and help them get the best start they can in life, to be productive citizens and to live a happy, strong life in a beautiful community that Mayor Possum is helping me get cleaned up. So again, please try to find time to attend these meetings. And if not, find time to see how you can volunteer in the schools. I promise you, you'll feel much better at the end of the day if you're out trying to be proactive and helping instead of just sitting back and complaining. Sitting back and complaining, I understand the frustrations, but it doesn't move us forward. I made a statement with the Board of Supervisors about, the crime and the litter and the stuff in Columbus. Well, if you look at the data, Columbus is not very different from other areas in the community or around the country. But we have an image problem because it's perception. And people are buying into it and reinforcing it. And I think that where you should be complaining and keeping us accountable for the potholes and all the things in the city, also try to step back and help us find ways to correct some of these problems. I really believe we're better together. I'm going to keep saying that. I'm not afraid of the criticism of the city, the things that we're trying to do. That's why we're in these jobs. But I really think that the more the citizens can get involved with what we're trying to do, the better. But also keep us accountable, because we need to be held accountable. Wings Over Columbus is happening on March the 26th and 27th. It's the first time we've had an air show probably since 2018, since the pandemic. There's been a lot of interest in it. You can find more information about it on our website. Also, the Columbus Pilgrimage is coming back for the first time in 2 or 3 years. It has been rebranded under a different organization called Preserve Columbus. I think if you look at the materials that are out, you'll see a very different event than we've had in recent years. It is an event that is much more inclusive and telling a full history of the Columbus area. A lot of cities are doing this, I think, to great success. From the folks that I've heard from with the Preservation Society, that there's a lot of interest in this year's event. They've got a lot of things booked from folks that live in Illinois, Wisconsin, all across the country. They've heard from us. A lot in the southern area around us are very interested. There are buses of people that are coming in. This is a great economic driver in our city. I encourage you to go out and look at the brochures and the information that is out there, because it is a much different pilgrimage than Columbus has had in the past. And again, this has primarily been driven by volunteers in the city, and I want to thank them for it. And working in cooperation with the CVB and the city and the county and homeowners, restaurant owners, people throughout the city who are trying to come together to give people a different experience. And I don't think you can say too much about the importance of events like that are driven by volunteers. So I want to thank them, and I want to encourage our local citizens to get out and participate, and then also encourage people to come and visit us here in the city. Let's see. I wanted to congratulate, and I did last night again, the Lady Falcons basketball team and Coach Harrison. They did an outstanding job making it to the finals. And when you come up short like that, sometimes it's a terrible disappointment. But I just want them to know how proud our citizens are of them and their hard work. We're continuing to talk about them, and we're going to look for other ways to recognize them. That's that type of effort and representing our city so proudly is something we can't overemphasize enough. Also want to thank the folks who brought the statewide spelling bee to Columbus on Saturday. Local sponsors and individuals played a big part in saving that event. It was possibly not going to happen in the state, more than likely would not have happened if local businesses and individuals and folks with our chamber had not pulled together to bring that event to Columbus. I just played a small part in going down and welcoming the folks that were there. But it was a true joy to see people from across the state. Many of them came up to me and said it was the first time that they had been to Columbus and that they would definitely be back. The kids were amazing. I don't know if you've ever watched a spelling bee before, but it's almost like watching a sporting event when you watch the expressions on their faces and the way they're thinking and they're trying to do this. And so I really enjoyed it, and I can't thank the folks enough that brought that to our city. And I encourage other citizens to be thinking about other things like that we can do to bring to Columbus, because I think we're a unique city, and hosting events like this is exactly what we should be doing. Now, having said those things, we did go into executive session last night. The city took up 2 issues with personnel. One member of the city employment was put on administrative leave with pay, and then there was another termination in the Public Works Department. So those were the 2 things that we took up then. So with that, I'll stop rambling on and take questions about anything that happened last night.
That person that you suspended with pay, is that a police officer?
Yes. And that's a state law requirement that you do that, because obviously people are considered innocent until proven guilty. And it was an accusation, a charge that's been made against him, but he has not had his day in court yet. So in a situation like that, we're required to put them on paid leave.
Okay, I have a couple questions about, the Airbnb policies, in Columbus. So can you just tell me just a little bit about that? I wasn't really aware that there were so many Airbnbs in Columbus. So like, what's the policies on that?
Well, I'm not going to be able to rattle off everything that was discussed last night. We can get you the information. But basically, let me say this about the Airbnbs, and I've mentioned this before. That is a new thing that's been going around our country for quite some time. Well, I say new, but it's not. I mean, it's been several years. And there's a lot of concern about where you can locate them and where you can't. And so that was the thrust of the policies last night, and we can show you. Joe, do you have a copy of it?
No, sir, I don't.
Would you step down there and see if Jeff is there, because he could answer more detailed questions about it. But it started from an Airbnb that was being located in a neighborhood in Columbus where it was not zoned for. And the folks in the community were concerned about it. And there was not a full-time person living in the house. So that's where the whole issue stemmed from. And so the city is trying to make the best policies to compromise in those areas. Because when you start looking at Airbnbs, then you start looking at other places where short-term rental is taking place in the city. You also start looking at bed and breakfasts, which we've had in the city for quite some time. So what they're trying to do with these ordinances is to make sure that people are registered when they're doing it, and that they're occurring in parts of the city that are set up for that. Is he there? Okay. So that's where that is. And then there were different concerns about it within different wards. Jeff, they're asking about the policies last night from the Airbnb. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. The key thing that they did with Airbnb is they authorized Airbnb short-term rentals in all zoning districts with the exception of C1R, I think it is, which is for professional office space. So with planning commission approval only. And then, of course, after the planning commission, it comes to the city council to approve, which was quite a departure from the planning commission's original recommendation, which was that they're just not allowed in R1. I think.
And they'll have to register as a business too?
Yeah, they'll have to get a business license also. That was part of the motion, that's right.
So, no, my question, I have another question. So bed and breakfast and Airbnbs aren't in the same category, are they?
Correct, they're not. The bed and breakfast is where an owner is an occupant and renting a space in their own house where they're living.
So essentially, if I want to set up an Airbnb, if I get a business license and then I go to the planning commission and say, this is where I live, this is how it's zoned, and they vote it up or down?
That's right. I assume they'll give notice to the surrounding property owners who would have a right to come in and protest. I think it'd be 160 feet. I'm not positive on that. I know we do that with a zoning change, but I'm assuming that there'll be some sort of notice given to the neighbors surrounding, and that would probably be a consideration in whether it would be granted.
Are there any zones that were approved by right?
No, they all have to go to the planning commission.
So Jeff, basically what you're saying is, do they have to go to a certain area, or they just have to be in that C1 zone thing you're talking about?
They can be in any area but the professional office space with planning commission approval. None are just by right automatically. They have to go through the process.
Jeff, just explain for somebody that's watching who may not know what the planning commission's role is in this.
Okay, well, the planning commission generally sets the zoning what do you call it, the zoning map and the categories of zoning. And then they will approve changes to the zoning regulations. And so they are an advisory board to the mayor and city council. Things go to the planning commission for consideration. Their recommendations come up to the city council, who typically will go along with what the planning commission recommends, but not always. And then if a person is aggrieved from that decision, they can appeal to circuit court through what used to be called a bill of exceptions, but now it's just an appeal. Anything else?
Anything else on that?
How does this affect any Airbnbs that exist already?
Other than they're gonna have to get a business license and apply for planning commission approval, I don't know of any ill effect that it'll have. And I don't anticipate a lot of neighbors will have as many complaints as you had out in North Haven Woods, but who knows? Time will tell.
Thank you, Jeff. And I will add to that, that, you know, there have been citizens that have reached out about these policies, and they're new. And so, you know, they're still up for discussion when, if there's major concerns. But we're trying to move forward with a plan and a policy that will work best for the citizens in the city. So thank you for those questions. Anything else that we discussed last night that y'all would like for me to elaborate on?
The improved incentive pay, can we break that down a little bit more? I'm sorry, to bring you back.
Yeah, we're going to bring Jeff back on that, because he is the one that has worked closely on that with Councilman Beard. This is, you know, a topic we've been discussing for quite some time. So there has been change as we've been working on this over the last several months. So I think that it'll be best for you to give the overview, and then I can take any other particular questions.
Okay, so is there a specific question, or you just want me to recover what
Try
they
to
did?
break that down for me so I can understand.
Okay, Congress passed the American Rescue Plan Act, which was
Repeat the question, I'm sorry. People couldn't hear.
break down the premium pay
Thank you.
in more detail. So Congress passed the American Rescue Plan Act some time ago, over a year ago, and then the Department of Treasury came out with an interim final rule, which was about 450 pages. And one of the categories that was allowed is premium pay for eligible workers performing essential work. And there was a lot of confusion about whether a government employee had to be performing essential work and how it was determined what work was essential and not essential. And then Treasury came out with a final rule and said, you guys just misunderstood. If you're a government employee, you're eligible, and that's all you need to worry about. So it was my understanding from Councilman Beard, he was pretty confident that it would get a vote of favor on awarding premium pay. The council had previously set aside $1.3 million out of its ARPA funds. The request was to pay $3,000 incentive pay for future work and break it down into 2 installments. So the first installment period will be April 1 to June 30, and the next, at the end of June 30, they'll get $1,500 minus their withholdings. And then from July 1 to September 30, they'll get the next installment of a gross amount of $1,500 less their withholdings. PERS will not be withheld from it because it's incentive pay and not salary.
Jeff, I got one question. Is this for all workers?
All full-time city employees. Yes, sir.
Jeff, talk to me a little bit, because there was a question about how sick leave would affect it, and then I got a question from an employee last night, how vacation time would affect it.
Yeah, if you're not working, you're not getting the incentive pay. That's the point of the incentive is to incentivize work, not vacation or being sick. So if you're out sick, we're sorry for that, but you get sick leave, and you don't get a bonus or an incentive for being sick. And you know, that may be hard, but some things people think are not fair, just the way they are.
And mention the fact that we're sending for an opinion from the...
Yes, I feel confident the AG is going to give us an opinion that favors incentive pay, because after all, they've said to numerous other cities on frequent occasions that there's nothing wrong with prospective a promise to pay for future work, including merit pay, incentive pay. Of course, we know the governor gave bonuses for past work, which I still can't figure quite out. But anyway, my strong advice to the city council and the mayor was, we don't need to do this unless and until the mayor sends off and gets a favorable reply from the attorney general, because that will insulate them from having some sort of claim on their bond if the opinion is favorable. If the opinion is not favorable, I'm not going to recommend they do it. And that's part of the resolution, is that, you know, this may or may not happen. But I anticipate it will.
It did pass on a 3-2 vote by the council. Vice Mayor Mickens had left early. He had an event he had to attend and was not there when that vote took place. My stance on it is this: I'm happy that the employees are going to get, you know, some type of compensation. I was not in favor of this because it's one-time money, and I felt like it would be better use of the city dollars to try to leverage it. But what I wanted to reiterate, and I've said this to our employees over and over again, is that any vote against this and my speaking out, encouraging a different policy, was not anything negative against them. I'm just interested in trying to make sure that we can pay. I like incentive pay. To me, that's a more fair way of doing this type of thing. You know, sometimes bonuses like this can bump you up into a higher tax bracket, and you don't really see that much out of it temporarily. There's a lot of different things that it could cause. Also, we don't know that we can maintain these over time at this point. But again, I'm happy for the employees. I don't want this to be a negative thing at all. Good people can disagree on how policy should take place in the city. I've commended Councilman Beard on his passion for this. He truly believes in it, probably put more effort and work into it than any other council member. He felt strongly about it. So we're hoping that the news will come back well from Jackson and they can enjoy this, and we hope that we're able to maintain it. My goal, once we get a new CFO here, is to look at our pay scale, look at how we can best, I think Zach asked the question at the last news conference, what's our priority here, equipment or employees? And I said, well, I think you could say that, you know, from the indication of where our budget was, we had set aside $1.5 million for a 3% raise across the board. That was the compromise that the council came up with in that process for the budgeting. And so I think that makes a strong statement that the council and the mayor feel strongly about having a strong workforce that is well paid so that we can be competitive across the board. I'm a strong believer in awarding work for pay, and I think we've got some long dedicated employees that have not gotten the pay raises that they probably should have, and I think, you know, we've got to do a better job of preparing for that and budgeting for that over time, and I look forward to doing that when we get a new CFO in place.
I do have a question in regards to the incentive pay. The original putting aside amount from ARPA was $1.3 million, and I think y'all ended up, around 750, somewhere in there?
It'll probably be less than 750.
Okay, so I mean, I guess,
That's close.
talk about the need for, the process of, and the value of the compromise, because what y'all ended up with was a compromise down from the 1.3 million that was set aside. So I mean, how valuable was that discussion? How valuable was that process? And how can that process be replicated and put?
That's my question. Well, let me answer that as clearly as I can. From the work session that you watched, there was not a lot of discussion about it. As I said earlier, this was an effort led by Councilman Beard, so I think he would probably be better to answer that question. So I don't know how that number was reached. Jeff was working with him more directly on that than I was, so I'll let him.
What I can just tell you is that, I don't know what the other council members were thinking personally from firsthand knowledge. However, being awake and paying attention to things that are said, I heard Reverend Mickens on one occasion several months ago say, this is going to happen. And I heard Councilwoman Stewart in another meeting say, I favor it. So when Councilman Beard said in the last work session, this is what I want to propose, I assume there would be a reasonable likelihood it would pass. So I heard him, I asked the question, what kind of bracket are you talking about money-wise? And he said $600,000 to $750,000, and I want it paid out in 2 installments. So I went back and took $750,000 divided by 235, came out with $3,192, rounded it down to $3,000 just to make it simple, cut it in half, and that's how I came up with the figures.
Okay.
But
So
it wasn't
the
any,
administration wasn't involved with the discussions of compromising down from 1.3?
No, not, just like Jeff said, just hearing people talk, over time, there was saying that, that money could fluctuate that level, but, no.
But your position was that from ARPA, that you were uncomfortable and continue to be uncomfortable using ARPA?
Well, I'm not as uncomfortable as we were when Jeff was saying that there was a chance that if we made that decision, because we didn't have all the information down from Treasury. Again, see, remember, when this money came to us, we've got half of it in place now, a little over $2 million. There's another 2 something coming. Because of the size of the city, that money came to us from not directly to us, but through the state and then to us. So that adds a whole new element to it. The county got theirs directly, because of the level, directly from the federal government. So it didn't go through the state. So, Jeff had talked about at one of the meetings that there were some, communities who got ahead of themselves and awarded it and had to pay it back, right? So I think there was some concern over that. As I said earlier, and as I've said, ever since I was aware of the ARPA money and how we could potentially spend it, I am not in favor of using one-time money for salary increases, especially when there's an opportunity to have it leveraged, because that would be the easy thing for me to say. Now, I'm not against them getting it, but for me as mayor, I think I have to look at what is best for the entire city, and as the council does too. But, we've got major issues in equipment. I would have preferred to wait until we knew what money we could get leveraged, how much if we could get it, add more money to it to do other things, and then sit down and break down how much we would do in each way. However, as Jeff alluded to, there were members of the council who wanted to make sure this didn't get kicking down the road. And I totally get it. I'm not angry with them or frustrated with them at all. They knew where I stood on it, and you move forward and you compromise. But that's just my stance on it, and I've said this to groups of employees. You can't say too much about what a working environment has on folks. And I've had many employees say, yeah, I would love the raise, but I would also love to have the equipment that we needed to get our jobs done right. I would love to be in an office where it wasn't leaking by the ceiling. All those things kind of affect the work environment. Now, they've also said to me that they were getting tired of it being teased in and out. Talk about it here, take it away there. Talk about it here, take it away there. I totally get that too. So I'm happy that there is a resolution to it. And I'm happy, I hope that they're able to get the money, and I hope that it has a positive impact on them. And what I will always stress on this is that there's not one council member or the mayor that doesn't want our employees to get adequate pay and fair pay. We just disagree on the process.
And you just concerned, Mayor, are we gonna be able to continue this pay raise?
Yes, I mean, once you get the money, it's a nice thing to have, and it's hard to let it go. We're hoping and praying that we will be able to maintain it, but we don't know that for sure. And I'm just a little bit more cautious on things like that. I like to know that things are there before I commit. And that's not to say I'm not despairing anybody by saying that. That's just my thought process and how, you know, this is not my personal business, and it's not the council's personal business. This is the city's business, and this is the city's money. I tell the employees all the time of the city, I work for you too. I know you think I'm the leader of the city, but I work for y'all because I'm an elected official, right? And I feel like I have to answer to, everybody that's in the city, and even folks in the county that have businesses here. What they're looking for the mayor to do is to try to make the best decisions as possible for the city and all the citizens. And that's not an easy thing to do, and it's not a popular thing to do, and I get that. But I didn't run for office to make easy decisions. Some people say I don't have a thick enough skin yet. Yeah, I do. Do I get a little annoyed at times? Sure, I do. Do I raise my voice? Probably, yeah, sometimes. But I'm human. But I promise you, this is nothing about me personal. This is about or against any council member. This is about what is best for the citizens of the city, and we just need to agree to disagree and not try to make it look like, it's pitting me against Councilman Beard, because it's not. I mean, I know it's fun to read that probably for some, or, it makes good headlines. It's just simply not true. We don't agree on everything, but I think we both want what is best for the city and the citizens. We just have a different view of how to get there.
Can you talk about the interviews for CFO that are going on right now?
Yes, be happy to. We have been working since I got here hard to get a new CFO. Again, this goes back to me taking office and wanting to realign how the COO and the CFO positions work together and how the job descriptions were. And so it took us a little time to figure out how we were going to move forward on that. But I'm happy to say that we started conducting Zoom interviews with the search committee today, and we've got very strong candidates in that role. I think increasing the salary has helped. So the meetings that we've had this morning, I don't think the search committee could be more delighted with the candidates that we've talked to thus far. We've narrowed it to 6. From that group, we're going to, and we took the names, each member of the search committee had their top 3 people, and then we worked with the HR director and the COO to bring that down to 3 from each person. And then from that, we narrowed it down to 6 that we wanted to do Zoom interviews with. And those started today, and I think there's going to be some tomorrow. So we hope to be through those this week. From that, we're going to narrow it to 3. And then from that, we will call those 3 in for personal interviews. And so I think if things continue as they are, then we will be in a good place by the end of the month, hopefully, to have somebody here. We're very excited about that.
How many applicants did you get for the CFO position this time?
Ooh, we'd have to ask Ms. Pat about that. It was quite a few from, and most were from outside of Columbus.
Were there any in-house?
No. There were some local, but there were none in-house. That expression on your face, Zach, and typing is very distracting.
Is it the same search committee that was handling the COO?
It is. And that search committee is also looking at an IT position and registrar.
And you said you think the higher salary range helped bring in some better candidates?
I hate to use the term better, but I think it caught the attention of people with more experience. These positions, I've been getting knocked around a little bit about how slow this process is, and that's okay. However, it takes a special skill set to do this type of work. I realize that more now being here than I did before I got here. you know, there's been a lot of debate in the community about our finances. There's been a lot of debate between me and the council on the finances. I don't know that that's a negative thing. I think what we want to do is just make sure we're the best stewards possible of this money. And, you know, this kind of stuff's not easy to get on the same page with. You know, change is difficult. But I think that nobody will disagree that the finances of the city have been a question for quite some time. And it's not just from the back, you know, the most previous administration. It goes back to the one prior to that, the one prior to that. I've learned a lot of things about some of our funds that we've been discussing that have been in place since 1983. When you don't have a lot of consistency in that role, then things are forgotten and things, you know, are overlooked. You know, do I think there's been this vast conspiracy to take money away from Columbus? No. But we know we've had 2 embezzlements in what? Well, both administrations. There was one under the past administration and there was one in the Rupp administration. So we've had 2 embezzlements. To me, that's a little concerning. You know, some people say, oh, $20,000, I mean, $200,000 here, $200,000 there. Some politicians might feel that way. I do not. I don't want that going. I don't want that happening on my watch, and I don't want it happening in future watches. Am I pointing a finger at Mayor Smith or Mayor Rupp for that? No, I'm not. Could it happen under another mayor's watch? Yes. Obviously it could. You know, but my biggest concern on this is to make sure that it doesn't happen again. And so to be able to hire somebody that has the level of experience that I believe that we need to make sure that doesn't happen again and save the city money and get a long-term plan in place for us to be able to fix all the issues that we have as far as leaky ceilings, equipment needs. You have to plan for those things. You know, you can have all the great plans in the world, but if you don't have the finances set up to do it, then you're not going to be it. It's not going to happen. And we see that from examples. So, you know, and I don't mean this in a sarcastic way at all, but I mean the definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome, right? So we need a different outcome. And to do that, I think we needed to step up our game as far as pay for positions like COO and CFO to make us more competitive and more comparable with cities our size. And that's what we're doing. It took us a minute to get there. Maybe not as fast as a lot of people would have liked, and I understand that. But we're also running a city on the day-to-day basis. I mean, there are a lot of things that we're working on outside of trying to fill these important positions. But what I want at the end of the day, and I don't care who gets the credit for it or what they think about it, I want to get the best people we can in those positions. I think we made a fantastic hire with our new COO. And I think we're going to make a really good hire in the CFO.
Are any of the final interviews or final names going to be made public?
We will, let me address that. First, let me say this because Joe just handed me, for the CFO candidates this round, we had 40. We took them down to 22 and then to 6. When you take the 40 down to 22, that's Miss Pat going through and finding the ones that meet the minimum requirements. You get a lot of applicants in that, you know, I think are just getting their resumes out there for any and everything and hoping, well, I don't have this, but maybe it'll work anyway kind of thing. So she had to get it down to the minimum. And then so it was 22 that came to us, each member of the search committee, and then we've gotten that down to 6. As far as names, you know, that's a tough road we walk there. In that we want to be as transparent as possible, but we also want to be protective of individuals who've applied for positions because they are all employed somewhere else. And so what we will do is, as we did before, is that we will work with the candidates to get their comfort level of when we can release their names. And I promise you, we'll do it as soon as we can.
I have a couple questions about the drainage study that was proposed last night.
Mm-hmm.
Did I hear correctly that the price for that was about $260,000?
Yeah.
Yes, it was, and that was to prepare to do the work. That did not include doing the work. And so
When
that,
you say doing the work, you mean cleaning the ditches?
the cleaning the
right?
ditches, yeah, that's what it would take to get us to the point where we could do it. If we didn't use Public Works in any of that. That proposal is as if we didn't use our employees, but we were outsourcing all of that work. That was tabled. It was a tie to do that. I broke the tie to table it. One of the questions was by Vice Mayor Mickens was, how does this interact with what we're doing with Wagner? And so that was one of the things that the council wants to look at a little closer and make sure that we're handling our money wisely on this. This again is ARPA money. The question is, how quickly do you move on this? We have asked the county we have tentatively set aside $3 million for watershed and flooding issues. And as we all know, does not begin to touch the huge issues that we have in this city. We have asked the county to match it and also help us with blight. They have given us a pretty clear signal that they're not going to match it. My contention has been, as I kind of put my, request behind the watershed areas, because it looked like to me at the time that that's where we were going to get the most bang for our buck in Jackson. When I was at the Mississippi Municipal League meeting this summer, the Lieutenant Governor spoke on ARPA and said, and I heard him, he said, municipalities become best friends with your Board of Supervisors. They've got more money. If y'all come together and then come to Jackson, you're more likely to leverage it. Now, there's been a lot of politics under the bridge since then, right? Things have changed, but we did bring the city, the county, and state reps together in November here in this room to begin having that conversation about ARPA. Now, this is once in a lifetime money, potentially, and, life-changing money, actually, in a lot of ways. So the question is, do you try to use it for a lot of different things, or do you try to focus it? And my preference was to focus it and leverage it over time we wouldn't be able to get all the money to fix all the drainage problems, but in the process of if we had leveraged it all towards that and continued working towards other grant dollars and things to fix the problems, to me, that was the better way to go. But I don't think anybody on the council had a complete consensus on this. And so we're still working through it. But I have no doubt that we will come up with some things that will definitely make a difference for the city. I'm still hopeful and prayerful that we will have enough money to fix all the issues. Now, the other question is this. The proposal that was given last night, we have been told by Kevin Stafford, and he's told me this even before we had ARPA money, that 60 to 70% of our problem is proper, cleanage of, ditches and things, and fixing small things like that to prevent the flooding. 60 to 70 is his estimation. And I've been out with him many times, as has other council members, in neighborhoods talking to citizens of Columbus who are very frustrated about the water getting up near their house, or businesses where it's coming right up to their door. And this has been happening for a long, long time. And so when do you ever, obviously it's hard to find the money to fix these things, so when do you have the opportunity other than when, you have something like this in place, is my thinking. That's just my thinking. So do I wish we could have gotten everybody together singing Kumbaya on this and going to Jackson with one big happy, thing from the city and county? I think that's never likely to happen. What I do think is happening, though, is I think we're seeing better dialogue between the city and the county, and I think we're seeing more of a willingness to listen to each other. It's hard sometimes to listen and not talk over. When you're passionate, I've been accused of not being able to take the word no. When you're passionate about something, or you really feel like it's important to continue to talk about something to try to help make change, I think that's a good thing. And we've had a lot of good conversation. I think the supervisors were meeting today to really, they have a different person advising them than we do. They went about hiring that person differently than we did. We added that person to the mix when we were looking at the 3 folks to give us, to hire to advise us on this, because it's you need help trying to leverage this money and to, because the laws are difficult to, you know, to weed through sometimes and to know you're doing it exactly right. But once you have the money, you've got to make sure you're following all the guidelines of the federal and state government when you're working through that. That's when you can get in trouble. And that's what the city and county was trying to do to make sure we had the best advice. You know, some people would ask, why are you paying them that much money to tell you how to use the money? Just fix it here and there. Well, it's a little bit more difficult than it seems on the surface. And most municipalities that were receiving any high level of money were hiring people to help them in the process. You know, and we had 3 groups that we looked at. The group that's helping the county, we brought them in, and ultimately the city council voted to go with Wagner. And since then, when Wagner was coming back with suggestions and things, there was some debate and not controversy, but concerns about, you know, was that the best way to spend the money and to work with and that kind of thing. So what we've been trying to do is I've tried real hard to make sure that Wagner and Neil Schaefer are working together to help us. Neil Schaefer has been in the city for a long time. It's a much larger business than Wagner, but there are plenty of cities inside Mississippi where the 2 have worked together to the benefit of the city. Meridian is an example of where you can see that. So Wagner picked up some work also in West Point and Brooksville and Artesia, I think. They're going to open an office here in Columbus. And so my hope is that we're going through this process, that we don't politicize the businesses that we're working with, but that we make sure that we're, you know, paying, you know, we're watching our money closely as far as paying fees for these things. So that's a long answer to say, I think that's why the council wanted to table it, so we can come together and look at, okay, what exactly is Neil Schaefer doing? What exactly is Wagner suggesting? How does what Neil Schaefer is proposing differ from what they were proposing? Just so that we're all clear on it. I don't think there's any controversy here. I think, you know, Councilman Jones and I have been very outspoken about the fact that we think that, you know, the flooding issue should be a priority. And I think he and I both wanted to try to get as much information as quickly as we can to try to make these decisions. And so I think that's why it was tabled last night, just to get a little bit more information.
As far as the Neil Schaefer study specifically goes, is this something that you think is worthwhile?
Neil Schaefer study?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The one that was tabled last night?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you know, Kevin is not only has been, you know, working for Neil Schaefer, but he's from Columbus, and I mean, he loves the city. And he and I've had conversations about it, and he has no problem working with Wagner or whoever that can help benefit the city. So yes, anything that they come back with, I think is and I was encouraging him and was talking to him and with Councilman Jones as some of this process was playing out, you know, getting this information together and working with Casey at Public Works, Casey Bush. So yeah, I think it's worthwhile. What I do want to make sure though is that it's not something that and I think that's what, you know, the council was looking at last night, is we don't move so quickly that we don't know exactly how this compares to what we're doing with Wagner and other groups. Again, it's coming back, making sure we're the best stewards of the money as possible, but getting the work done as quickly as possible. You know, and the council works part-time. They have full-time lives and jobs that they're dealing with. And because of the issues that we face with open meetings acts and those kinds of things, it's not always as easy to get all these things worked out before a council meeting as we would like. I know that there are citizens that, you know, would like to see us move faster on some of these things, and I get that, especially the ones that have been dealing with the flooding most of their lives. I was talking to a citizen the other day who's lived on her street for 50 years, and she cannot ever remember when there wasn't a flooding issue on her street. That's not good, you know. So the question was, you know, when we were looking at the plan that Neil Schaefer brought last night, I asked the question, you know, this is what it would cost for us to get all the information and the outsourcing to do the work, but could the work cost take up the rest of our 3 million? And he was like, yeah. Then I asked again, well, what was the to be able to keep the ditches clean long term, what was the price on that equipment again? It was pretty high, 300,000 or more. So do we go out and do this plan that they're talking about now when we don't know if we're gonna have the equipment and stuff to maintain it over time? Because it's not gonna fix it permanently when we do this work, right? We gotta make sure we have a long-term plan to keep this going, or we'll be right back in the same situation we are now. One of the reasons we're in this situation is because of not appropriate equipment, not staffed correctly in public works, and no real plan of keeping our ditches and areas like that clean. So, it's, you talk about, can't you move faster, can't you move faster? Well, we can move faster, but we need to make sure our ducks are in a row, I think, before, or we won't be able to maintain it.
Well, that's all for me.
All for you? All for you? Yeah, you look like you were dozing off there, buddy. Did you work last night? You look like you were dozing off. Uncle Joe, anything else? Thank you all for tuning in. You have got to stop doing that.